Hello everybody. Something different today. The other day I was saying it was the most gorgeous day of the year, but I was off by one day. It looks like today's even more gorgeous. It's about 65, 70 degrees, a little bit breezy, but very sunny. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to get out the long lens and see if I can find any birds. Before we get started, I just saw what was either an eagle or an osprey just fly up the river. I only saw it for a fraction of a second between two trees, but we're going to wander in that direction and see if we can catch up with it. But I want to take just a couple of seconds to tell you about the gear I'm using today and a little bit about how to set up your camera. I'm shooting with a DSLR, a full frame, but what I'm going to say really isn't going to make a lot of difference if you have a crop frame. It's the lens that I'm going to be talking about, and this is the lens I'm using. It's the Tamron. It's 150 to 600. It's designed for full frame. It's their DIVC USD G2, so it's the second version of their sport zoom telephoto lens. Can't quite remember what I paid for it. It was about $1,200, which is it's at least $800 less than the new Nikon 500, I think. I don't know, I'd have to check the prices, but it's a little bit cheaper than the Sigma version. And anyway, it's a good lens. It's not a great lens. It's not a prime lens, obviously. So, you know, the quality's a little bit less than it could be. But it's for a walking around, shooting birds every once in a while. I think it's fantastic. It's really light compared to those big primes. Anyway, let me get in the shade a little bit, and I'll walk you through the settings. So the camera settings when you're using a zoom telephoto like this are important. We're going to be trying to shoot birds in flight. There are a bunch of pelicans out here today that are fishing right on this big river, and there are a lot of them, and they're very actively fishing, so I want to try to get some shots of them hitting the water. So it's very, very important that shutter speed be a priority. Now, I don't shoot in anything but manual mode. You can use shutter priority for this, but I just set up my settings and stick with them. So I would for this lens on this camera, I would start at a shutter speed of no less than 1/1000th of a second. Any slower than that, and you're going to get blur at distance. These lenses are not forgiving if you're not using a tripod or a monopod, which I'll talk about later, why I'm not using one. But at 1/1000th of a second, most of your birds in flight are going to be fairly sharp. And if you can get up to 2,000th of a second, that's even better. So what I'll then do is I'll set my aperture to just enough to get the bird in full focus, which doesn't have to be much, especially, you know, if I'm shooting at a bird that's 50 yards away. 5.6 up to f8 will be more than enough. And on many occasions, I'll open the aperture as far as it goes, which I think is only like 4.5 anyway. Make sure your shutter speed's fast enough and shoot an aperture priority if you want. Let's go take some pictures. These pelicans, when they're doing their dive bombing, are a sight to behold. We'll see if there's any more of this action a little bit further up here. So the bird action has calmed down just a little bit. I don't know why. It's still a gorgeous day, but I'm not seeing many interesting birds flying. But I just had a thought. I don't know if you saw my earlier video, like last year, where I came across this bizarre experiment that was being done in the woods, where they had donkeys' heads decomposing in a box in the woods, covered by some kind of wire mesh. We're going to go look at the dead donkeys' heads, see what kind of shape they're in after a year. Maybe they replenish it, top it up with fresh donkey heads. We'll see. If I can find it, I think I can. It's just across a field and down by a river, so I'll check back with you in a minute when I get to the rotting heads. Well, it's very disappointing. I got back to the donkey head buckets, and it looks like the whole place has been dug up. There are still lots of bones here that have been scattered far and wide by scavengers, and there's a really cute, I guess it's a vulture skull. I'll take some pictures of it. I'm tempted to take it home. I think it would look good on the shelf. All that's left of the donkey is a skull. I'll take some pictures of it. I'll do it with the real camera, not the phone. Well, I came to a different place that's on the same river. It's just across the road, but it's a very different habitat. There's this big long boardwalk that you can see here that goes in a big loop around one of the estuaries. There's usually a lot of birds around here. There's a ton of blackbirds and red-winged blackbirds, and not seeing any raptors, this is where I normally come to look for them to photograph, but the light's perfect. It's a bit breezy, as you can probably tell from the sound, but all in all, got some decent shots. Not going to give up just yet. I think we've got another hour of good sunlight. So I'll try a few more places before we call it quits. There's something interesting. I think I'll photograph that. Well, I think we are out of sunshine for today, and pretty much definitely out of enough good light to use this long lens. But I got some decent bird pictures, and strangely some interesting insect pictures with this, as well as a couple of lizards. And you've seen the pictures already. So the trick is, remember, if you're shooting flying birds, to keep your shutter speed up above 1/1000th, and yeah, pretty much everything else is what we talked about earlier. And you can see that for the kind of casual bird photography I do, I don't really worry very much about the likes of a tripod or a stand. There's plenty of stuff that you can support the camera with. Anyway, it's a gorgeous evening. I'm gonna finish it up here, and thanks very much for coming along, and thanks again to everybody who supports the show and subscribes. I really appreciate that. And Selena, thanks for your comments. I appreciate it. Keep them coming. I'll be back in a few days with something else utterly fascinating that you won't be able to live without. And until then, take care, good shooting, stay out of trouble. Bye-bye.